The Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency, but they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families, and they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the week that was on Deadline Detroit, remote edition, live from our respective bunkers and able to stream this live on Facebook today. Pretty excited about that. So this is happening right now. Joining me, as usual, we have Nancy Derringer from Deadline Detroit. Hello, Nancy.
Look what I got at the grocery store today.
Congratulations.
This is what happens when you get up and go to the grocery at 7 o'clock in the morning. So there you go.
Oh, so wait, do you get to go to the special senior hours, Nancy?
No.
Doesn't make the
Not yet.
Joke. I know. I've got my ARP card. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Alan Lengel from Deadline Detroit is with us as well. Hey, how are you, sir?
Good. I was going to say, I'm not used to sitting in front of the computer and not eating something.
Well, I have been missing the snacks.
Experience, yes.
The snacks in the office are one of the joys of working at Deadline Detroit, and
right.
They have been missing. So that's a good thing. I might be losing some weight. You never know. Also joining us is a special guest today. My son, Alex Fahle, home from school, because there's nothing that a college sophomore likes better than hanging out at his parents' house and still having to go to class, not being with his friends and all that fun stuff. But Alex, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. It's interesting being on Zoom for other things not class related.
Well, good. Well, hey, hopefully you'll have a little bit of fun with this. But, Alex, I should tell folks, is a poli-sci major at Kalamazoo College. So he's going to fit right into this discussion. He pays attention to things that are happening around the world.
And also a cellist, I believe, correct?
No.
Violist.
Violist. Okay, right.
There you go.
The underappreciated part of the string quartet, the viola.
Yeah, so we have an actual musician in the family as opposed to just the frustrated dad musician. So, my guitar lessons are not going as well as I would have thought during this break. But, speaking...
I have a funny story, by the way, if I can, real quick.
Well, no, Alan.
Okay, right. Larry David, go right ahead.
Please, Alan.
No, when we were talking about instruments, there was a woman who worked for the Justice Department, and she was detailed to a certain committee where Strom Thurmond was on there.
Yes.
And he was, and they were at some event, and there was a pianist going to play, and he wanted to introduce the person, so she knew she was messing with him, and he goes, well, how do I, introduce him? And she said, well, you call him a pianist. And he said, what? And she goes, yes, a pianist. And when he introduced the man, he refused to say that word. Just said something like a piano player or something like that.
There you go.
That sounds like the old joke about the guy who walks into the bar and he opens his bag and a little man and a little piano climbs out and sits down at the bar and begins to play. And
nice.
Blah blah blah. Long story short, the punchline is the genie didn't hear me right when I asked for a 12-inch penis. So there you go. All right, that's enough.
Full circle there.
Well, yeah. Hey, let's just start with this though. I mean, because obviously we've all been home for about a month now. I think. I think we just passed the 30-day mark. Probably did we not?
Isn't this the 5th week?
Is it the
5th
week?
It all blends together.
It's been a month for me. Yeah, I went home on the 17th. Wow.
I remember March 13th, we all went out for a drink for Violet's birthday, and then Craig and I went over to DeMongo's after and had a drink or two, and then,
Well, it's just all the fun stuff that is not happening. Lots of virtual meetings, but I want to ask how everybody is doing. How's the mental health? Are we holding up? because frankly, close quarters, it can be interesting at times. Nancy, I see you sort of looking pensively about this one, answering very carefully.
I believe that I have cooked 4,228 meals since this all began. But I'm doing okay. I mean, I'm a pretty level-headed person most days. There are times when I feel like I'm just going to go crazy. I have like periods of fatigue that comes on in the middle of the day. It's so I mean, and my circadian rhythms are all messed up. But I'm hanging in there, and we all have to say that we're not sick and our loved ones are not sick, and that means we're all right. So that's my status. How about you?
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, you feel fortunate that I'm feeling fine and doing well. Just got some news about somebody I went to high school with that didn't make it, and you're just sort of it's tough because it's
Had
happening.
COVID?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
happening to a bunch of people, and and it doesn't really seem to discriminate for age or anything else. It's just all sorts of people that are succumbing to this, and you know, that's one of the things I think that's so difficult. We're in week 5 of this, and you hope that you're seeing a slowing of the curve, and it certainly seems as if we are starting to see some progress there. But I don't see anything getting back to normal really quickly, and I don't think you can force this in any way. I mean, it's going to be each of us individually making decisions about what we're comfortable doing.
Right, right. It's
Yeah,
interesting. I
I would
mean,
say I would go ahead.
as I say, it's interesting. I mean, we're working every day on this, so we're sort of bombarded with this. I listen to, often 3 press conferences a day, topping it off with our great leader, Trump, which is just his things are just getting more and more bizarre. But I think most of the time I'm like, okay, whatever happens, it's beyond our control, and we have to accept this is going to be a different world. Yes, and we have to accept the limitations. But there are times where I'll suddenly be watching the news, and you'll see 800 people died, and it's hard not to tear up sometimes, just to when you take it into account. These are real numbers. I mean, it's almost like a baseball game. Like, oh my God, we're in 4th place now. We've slipped out of 3rd place. Massachusetts has taken over. But when you start to see the real numbers, and you start to see the nurses and the doctors and the harrowing stories, it's hard. It's hard not to let it get to you. But I mean, most of the time I'm good. I try to take a walk every day. I live in Midtown. I try to walk to Wayne State campus every day. I try to stay fit because, I was talking to a friend today, Rose Fenster, and the
Fabulous
Fensters,
Fensters.
and she's like, it sounds like you think about dying maybe. And I'm like, hello, I'm in Detroit. People are dying. It's not like crazy thoughts, it's not like every minute, but it's like, it's a possibility. We all don't know how we're going to process this if we are to contract it, if we're going to have a mild case, if we're going to have a really severe case, if we're going to die. And it's just, we hope for the best, but it's gotta, if anyone doesn't think about dying during this time, then I
Right.
say mazel tov.
Well, Craig said a minute ago that this disease doesn't discriminate. It doesn't discriminate who gets it, but it certainly seems to discriminate. Excuse me, my coughing.
Uh-oh, COVID
That was a
cough.
legit cough. It does seem to discriminate who dies from it.
Yeah, it really does.
I mean, it's like if Alex were to get it, he would be far more likely to pull through than if you were to get it, or me, or his father, or anybody else. But we have seen certainly that there are quite a few people who were in perfect health, who were younger, who, it's a sneaky disease, and plenty of people die from this who didn't deserve it. So we all have to be careful.
We don't always know. Also, when people talk about perfect health, we don't always know what's happening in the interior.
Exactly.
Like what's happening with their hearts, what's happening. Sometimes people have high blood pressure. They don't even realize it. So it's not always that way, but it's certainly, there are people who are dying in fairly decent shape. I mean, I feel like I'm in decent shape, but who knows? I'm not Alex's age either.
But I want to open this up to this conversation, because how confident is everybody feeling that somebody is got this under control. I mean, the stock market jumped 600 points on the open today on the news of a possible drug trial that seems to have some decent results, especially for those with advanced cases of this. So there is a lot of work being done, but you can't tell. I mean, I'm not feeling confident that the people in leadership are necessarily telling us
I don't
exactly
want
what's
to make
going on.
this sign because I don't want people to think I'm a white
Well,
supremacist.
we're not in Lansing.
This is zero. These are zeros, and
Yeah.
that is how much confidence I have. I mean, I trust medical minds. I trust scientists. But the reason we call this a novel virus is because we have not seen it before. And so everything that we know is based on how similar viruses behaved in the past. This is not the same thing. And so, I have less than zero confidence in the president and his gang of idiots that he has. I have way more confidence in people like Dr. Fauci and even Dr. Birx, although I was very disappointed with her kowtowing to the president a while back. And I just, we just have to, we really are kind of having to figure it out as we go along. So that's my confidence level.
I feel my confidence level. I'm with you on the president. I have zero. It's chaotic. There's nothing methodical about it. He's being forced to be somewhat methodical, but even so, there's not, like yesterday, there's not a great plan for testing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if they had rolled that out, I feel a little bit more. I feel more confident in the governors collectively trying to do the right thing.
Exactly. And to prove your point, Trump just an hour ago tweeted, quote, "Today people started losing their jobs because of crying Nancy Pelosi, crying Chuck Schumer, and the radical left do-nothing Democrats who should immediately come back to Washington and approve legislation to help families in America. End your endless vacation." Then he follows it off with 3 tweets: "Liberate Minnesota, liberate Michigan, liberate Virginia, and save your great Second Amendment. It's under siege." And so he clearly just doesn't.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
So the Second Amendment is under siege. So we had people in Lansing the
Is
other
this
day
a good transition into talking about Lansing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so.
because this is something I've been wanting to
Start
get
the
into.
real bashing.
Well, I mean, we need to. I'm sorry. That was a display of idiocy the other day.
Yes.
I know. Absolutely.
This isn't about, creeping tyranny. Look, this was the same rally I went to back in 1994 at the state capitol for United Nations Day, when the Michigan militia was holding weapons and threatening 8th graders who were raising the UN flag in Lansing the first time they came around. They, of course, slunk back into their holes after the Oklahoma City bombing. Then they rebrand themselves as the freaking Tea Party. And now they're back out here again talking about Heil Whitmer. This was a ridiculous display of stupidity in Lansing the other day. I'm not even sure. I've had people threatening me over this kind of stuff because I've been bitching about it for the last few days. And I've had people saying that one day they're going to come for you, man.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, I guess.
I love the misspelled signs.
My creeping tyranny is filled with really, really good home-cooked meals.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to stay home. And unlike you, I have a much better case of not contracting the virus because I'm staying home. So if you get sick, I would recommend you treat this and ride it home and make sure that the people who are desperately going to need treatment get to the hospital, because you guys had no idea, you were blocking traffic, and people who were trying to get to the hospital because someone had a severe COVID case couldn't get there because they were blocking the driveway.
Well, my favorite guy at that rally, I saw him, I think Fox 2 was interviewing some guy or something like that, and he had a mask on, and he's like, "Hey, I don't think the coronavirus is a big deal. It's no worse than the flu. I'm not going to catch it." And the reporter's like, "Well, why are you wearing a mask?" I goes, "Well, I don't want to catch it." You're just like, well, okay, that's just,
it was interesting yesterday. The Trump at his press conference was asked by Jonathan Karl from ABC. He said, "What about the protesters at Lansing, in Lansing and other states that aren't listening?" And he would not criticize them for standing close together, whatever. He just said, "Hey, it's been rough on people. They've had to stay in and blah, blah, blah." Because the reality is he's really never bought into this isolation and shut down thing. He's only been forced into it out of the reality, out of the numbers that we're seeing. And he's had no choice, but he's never been for that. And so, and then he says, and then he's asked again about it, and he says, he goes, don't you think those people should be listening to local authorities? And he said, well, they're listening to me. They seem to like me. And you know what? I mean, if you know, this guy could be impeached on, you know, you could pick every single day and find something that's impeachable about this guy. And this is criminal, how he has continued to make this a campaign and political thing every single day.
He's incapable of doing anything else.
He only cares about winning his second term. And I think the fact that the problem for him is that he has lost the one thing that has stayed like sort of stable during his term, which is the economy and the stock market. Like now that the economy is, you know, now that it's falling down the drain the way it is, and with so many millions of people filing for unemployment, like that one thing that he could always point to and say like, oh, look at this, look at the stock market, look at how good I am. Like that's no longer the case. And it's kind of just like spiraling into a free fall right now with that. And I think he's getting nervous about that because now the one thing that he could point to and say like, hey, look at this, reelect me, I can keep the economy going, is not going to happen anymore because we're heading into a recession.
Well, I mean,
we're in a recession, huh?
We're in a recession.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the job gains of the last decade have been wiped out, you know, with this, and obviously a lot of those are going to come back when things start to get back to normal. But there is no timeline, artificial timeline, where you can say, hey, May 1st, we're going to reopen the economy. The president saying that he has the authority alone earlier in the week, and now saying, well, it's going to be up to the governors because somebody actually got him a copy of the Constitution, so he could take a look at it. But, you know, I love the fact that I'm seeing governors in the regions collaborating on this sort of thing. What are you seeing in your state? We're going to do what we can to work together to find out whether or not we're able to do this. This is where it should be decided at the local level.
And Republicans and Democrats are involved. And the fact is there's some thought going into it. It's not just we need to get back by Easter. I mean, if it were up to him, we would have been back by Easter. We would have had a major spike again. The hospitals would have been just even worse than they are now. I mean, they've already got refrigerated trucks in some of the hospitals for the bodies. The Oakland County Medical Examiner's offices put 2 refrigerated trucks in the back of their building there, and they're trying to get more. So, and this is with social distancing. And I want to say, you know, Joe LaPointe did a piece on the 1918 pandemic. And he did it about what was happening in Detroit, and the social distancing, the closing of businesses was happening back then. And what basically what happened during the pandemic was that it finally slowed down in 1918 in the fall. People started going back out. They had a resurgence in 1919, and then in the summer, by the summer, it went away. And part of it went away because it killed so many people, and then the others built up an immunity to it.
Did you read one of, I mean, the pace of jaw-dropping stories about the president just goes up every week. But there was one last week that said that he has repeatedly asked his staff, why don't we just let this wash over the country? Let's let it wash over the country, which is actually, you know, I pay a certain amount of attention to kind of crazy extremist internet.
Somebody's got to keep track of that stuff.
Exactly. Not Dr. Oz, but I mean, this has been coming for a while, and people are just, as they say, saying the quiet part loud. We're hearing from Dr. Oz. We're hearing from that doofus.
Don't give away the schmuck of the week. Okay. I've got Dr. Phil's right up there for me. I'll get to that in a little bit.
But they're all saying essentially, look, let's just let it run wild. You know, we'll lose grandma and grandpa and, you know, maybe a few younger people, but hell, you know, at least the stock market will still be up there.
I mean, unlike you, it's like, I don't want family members to die from this. Like, I'm not going to feel comfortable going out for like a long, long time, even when we start lifting all this stuff.
And that's it. I mean, you know, just because you can go out, I'm wondering what is the rollout going to be of this, and then how willing are people going to be to do this? Now, I will say this. I swear to God, there better be some damn fine gardens all over this state when this is all over, because
Right.
I never
Yes.
knew so many people needed to buy freaking seeds in my life.
The radical gardeners.
That's
It's a
right.
whole
The
element.
radical
It's like when
gardener.
I know.
You'll take
That's
my
crazy.
pitchfork when it pry it from my cold dead fingers.
That's a
It's
great
like
name for a band.
Everyone, it's like
Winter
the radical
Gardeners.
gardeners. Yeah, you
like
know,
stop
it's
complaining about golfing and gardening and wanting to go up to your cabin and, you know, complaining about having to like quarantine in your like 5,000 square foot house in Rochester Hills.
What was interesting
Well-
was a lot of the people at the protest in Lansing obviously were from some more rural parts of the state,
Yeah.
which don't have massive outbreaks. They're saying this is a Southeast Michigan problem and we should be fine up there, but they're saying we should be able to go to our cottages. Well, they're saying that, but they certainly don't want a flood of Southerners coming up to their summer places over the next few weeks.
Right.
Most of the people
Yeah.
I know who live up north, they don't want us coming up there right now.
No, they don't.
Exactly.
They've got, I mean, I was talking to, I think I wrote a story about a guy in, was it Alcona County? And he said, look, we don't even have a hospital. We have a walk-in clinic and that's it. And the closest
Exactly.
hospital is about half an hour away. And the closest good hospital is about an hour and a half away. So, you know, that's how, but if you're, you know, people feel like they're bulletproof until it turns out that they're not. That's just
Exactly.
nature.
I got into a debate with somebody on Facebook. The original person was a retired ATF agent who's
Stop doing that, Alan.
You
Stop
talk to
getting
this
into
guy all the
debates
time.
with people on Facebook. But
yes,
okay.
yes. But so the guy, one of the guys on there, not the ATF guy, who's you know, we have differences, but it's intelligently discussed. This guy, whoever, is some redneck friend of his, and the guy is talking about. He's saying, "I'm going to be out there fighting for your freedom." While you're, and I'm like, thanks. And I said, well, who's going to fight for the lives of the doctors and nurses who are dying and getting sick? And then he responds and goes, oh, and who's going to fight for the unborn babies?
Yeah,
Well, and who asked an ATF agent to fight for my freedom? That's what I'd like to know.
Well, it wasn't.
Make
This
sure
guy
you get that
wasn't
tobacco. I want those
Yeah.
tax stamps on
This
those
guy-
cigarettes, for God's sake.
This guy was actually a really great agent who put down a lot of very violent drug gangs in Detroit. But I was going to say, I was watching a couple of videos of Dr. Oz, and then I saw the posting by Dr. Phil where for Dr. Oz, where he was saying, well, we got to let the kids go back to school. Only like this percentage are going to die. And so that turned out to about
2 to 3%.
162,000 kids. And it's like, okay, Timmy, for the economy, take one for the economy. You're going to have to go back to school. You might die, but you know, look, it's for the better of the economy. And Grandma, you are definitely going down. You know?
Well, you know, I was listening to Rush Limbaugh the other day. Yes, I do.
Speaking of people who should not be going outside.
Well, and I was scanning through the radio dial the other day to hear what kind of talk was going on out there. So I had listened to Rush Limbaugh for a few minutes on WJR, and then I flipped over to another station. I think it was a religious station, but there was a guy talking about there, and they both at the same time must have gotten the same talking points from their conservative groups, because they were talking about herd immunity and how we need to let this go through so that we build up a herd immunity. And I just sat there and again, there's this assumption that, well, yes, some people are going to die. It won't be me, of course. It'll be somebody else. So it'll be okay. Like, how do you know that? You know,
Exactly.
okay, really,
Yeah,
are you willing to put
exactly.
your life on the line for the herd or not?
No,
And,
I am not.
That's the I think the strategy in Sweden right now. Like they believe herd immunity is going to help them out. And right now, like I think cases are exploding in Sweden, whereas in Germany, where they're social distancing and they're testing people en masse, like they've kept it down.
What's
Germany
testing?
is supposed to have opened up its economy again. You know, you see some places I was seeing on TV this morning, like Spain and places are starting to open the businesses, but nobody's going. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm not going to restaurants. I certainly wouldn't go to a sporting event. I certainly wouldn't go to a movie theater.
That is the problem with talking about opening the economy. It's like people are still not going to go out. And the reason that you have to treat it aggressively early is so that you can have an economy when it's all over. Because like you said, I probably wouldn't go to a restaurant at this point.
Well, and it's going to be slow. I
Very
think,
much so.
I think it's going to take us a long time to get back to where we were, even right before the quarantine went into effect. I mean, people were out and about doing things. It's going to take us a little while to get back there. Months, I think. It's going to be very slow. We're not going to have baseball games, I don't think, this summer at Tiger Stadium. And well, Comerica Park, excuse me. We've already got the announcement that the golf tournament's going to happen here without any crowds. And Michigan football even saying, hey, if we cancel the season, they're going to refund season ticket holders money, which I think a lot of people were pretty shocked by. But I mean, that's September. So I think people are recognizing that we're not going to be back to normal anytime soon. Hopefully, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's really shameful that this has become, and Trump has tried to frame it in the way of a Democrat and Republican thing, that Republicans want to get back to work right away. Democrats are being wusses and saying, "Oh, wait a minute," and stuff like that.
No. Democrats are sucking up unemployment benefits, and because we're inherently lazy people who don't like to work like they do. That's the other one. Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
That's true, but it's I mean, thankfully there's a bipartisan group of governors who are thinking this through. I mean, the problem is it's really so dangerous, and now up until now, the danger of having Donald Trump was not at its maximum, and now we're seeing every bad thing of why Donald Trump being president. I think it's really come to fruition. I remember Obama saying right before the election, he says Donald Trump is not fit to be president, and I thought, okay, that might be an over exaggeration. I think
I believed it.
I believed it.
I believed it, but I was hoping it would be an exaggeration. And I mean, all that has come to roost, as they say. It's really just.
Right. Well, hey, look, we now have an opponent, Joe Biden. Obviously, Bernie dropping out of the race was a big deal. Of course, the endorsements then roll in for Joe Biden. Elizabeth Warren signing on yesterday, saying that she'd be open to a VP nod if she were to get selected. Wow. What do you think? What do you think of that ticket?
I don't know.
I'd vote for it.
I'd vote for it.
I mean, Elizabeth Warren.
I'd vote for a potted plant.
Was my candidate all along? Exactly.
A mature adult.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. We'll just have a blank. Any mature adult.
That'd be a good campaign sign.
There is one actually.
Put that on the front lawn.
A friend of mine in LA, he took a picture and it said, it was a lawn sign that said, "Any mature adult."
Hey, speaking of LA, has anybody seen any of the photos of LA? I was talking to a guy I know who
the beautiful clear skies.
Clear skies. Who said he looked out his apartment. He looked out of his apartment window and he's realized if he squints between the buildings, he can see the ocean from his place. He'd never noticed that before because the smog had always been so thick there. Wow. He's like, I actually have an ocean view. He's like, my rent's probably going to get jacked up.
We're cleaning the Earth's lungs right now.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty amazing to see what's going on out there. I mean,
Los Angeles did, their smog problem in recent years has never been what it was before emission controls. I mean, that's just a fact, but they still have a certain amount of emissions that are just generated by human activity, happening all over the world. Beijing, the factories, or the clear skies over China are remarkable. I'm trying to think of some of the others that I saw. Some were fake. The dolphin frolicking in the canals of Venice, that was a fake.
We're the virus, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have a ton of time left.
Okay.
But let's sort of get into this. First of all, who's doing a good job right now in your estimation on this? Because I don't want to. We'll get to the schmuck of the week in a little bit. I've got a couple of nominees here. But who do you think is doing a good job? Whitmer's getting a lot of criticism, obviously, but polling pretty well in terms of the way she's doing things.
Yeah.
Mike DeWine in Ohio seems to be doing a decent job. Cuomo in New York seems to be doing pretty well. Gavin Newsom in California seems to be doing pretty well. And there's, those are both Republicans and Democrats. Governors actually have to get stuff done.
I'd say Whitmer is being a good leader. I think she's doing a lot of the right things. I think she was a little slow on doing the stay home. She could have. I think she waited. I mean, not so much longer, but Ohio. There were several other states already there. I think she should not have acquiesced, and we've discussed this before, to the church. The churches and stuff like that. I think there's legal basis not to acquiesce to them. And I have to say I've been impressed with Mayor Duggan. Very straightforward. And he seems to be trying to get things done in the city.
Well, and already coming up with a plan for this deficit. Obviously he wants to keep the Financial Review Commission off the city's backs if he can. But look, these are significant shortfalls that the city's going to be facing, and there are going to be a ton of places just like it that are going to be dealing with this stuff in a way that they never have before. Now, we've been through this, so therefore we need to have some contingency plans in our back pocket. But a lot of cities can learn from us.
I would agree with Duggan, and I would add, I have to do a shout out for the minimum wage and just above minimum wage people all over this country who are showing up for work, who are checking out your groceries, who are delivering your Amazon, who are doing all of these things for not a lot of money. They are literally risking their lives in many cases to do this. And they're keeping us fed. And, it's important to keep fed. So, as Alan Lingle could tell you.
Well, okay. So,
them. I would say, we really now we know who the essential workers are, and it's the people who aren't making their money. So
yeah, well,
I would also say,
go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, Jay Inslee of Washington did a really, really good job, because early on in February, when the virus was starting to spread, it was Seattle that was the epicenter of the disease, and they have been able to dramatically flatten the curve, and cases have been down for the most part in Washington. And we never see any of his press conferences on the national television.
No, we only hear about him if the president's complaining about him, which he has done a couple of times. But okay, so Schmuck of the week. I've got a couple of them. Who wants to go first? Nancy's got her hand up. Nancy's got her hand up.
I'm going to go with the Hoosier, whose name escapes me now, but since I was actually a Hoosier for 20 years, I feel like this one.
Oh, is this the guy I sent you?
Yeah.
Oh, is it Trey Hollingsworth?
Trey
Hollingsworth,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Who is one of these people who says essentially, throw grandma from the train. He's like, it's like reopen everything, let the disease run wild. Yeah, we're going to lose some older people, but keeping what he calls the American way of life alive is more important. So I will give him Schmuck of the week, and I will just say one more time that I will never, ever, ever, ever listen silently to a Republican talk to me about his pro-life attitudes, because this is about as anti-life as you can, and yet, this is a very common attitude on the right these days, and so that's my nomination.
Well, that was it. That was the whole Rush Limbaugh thing I was listening to the other day, just saying, yep, some people are going to die, and for a guy who's actually got stage 4 cancer, I mean, maybe think a little differently about this.
A little bit. Anyway, go ahead.
Alan.
I would say Dr. Oz for advocating that all the kids go back to school, and calculating that only some percentage, which turns out to about 162,000 or something children will die. You could imagine during class, like, Mrs. Burns, Timmy hasn't moved in the last 3 hours. Okay.
For what it's worth, yes. I buy his argument that he was not referring to children dying, that he was referring to just overall dying. That it would be okay if those kids took it home, got a little bit of a cough and a fever, stayed out of school for a couple of days and were fine, but then passed it to their parents and grandparents who would die. That's the one that I think that's what he was talking about, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's still a disgusting argument. So there.
As Jackie Mason would say, still a schmuck.
Still a schmuck, yeah.
Okay. Well, if we're going to do TV doctors, I mean, Dr. Phil. Now you can sit there and say Dr. Oz at least had a plausible explanation for what he was trying to argue. Dr. Phil, in the wonderful apples to oranges comparison that he made, said, hey, we can't worry about deaths from this. We're freaking out, but hey, bunch of people die. Yeah. What did he say? Here's the quote. We have people dying every day. 45,000 people a year die from automobile accidents, 480,000 from cigarettes, 360,000 from swimming pools, but we don't shut the country for that. Now, I'm sorry.
Is that a real number? 360,000?
No, it's actually like 3,600 or something like that. But either way, I mean, no, we don't. But
I don't think cigarettes are pandemic disease.
No.
I don't think auto accidents can be spread by coughing.
Well, and here's the other thing. We do everything in our power to make cars safer every single year.
Yeah.
Look at the technology that goes into them. Look at the lawsuits that have been out there. We have seat belts. We have safety glass. We have anti-lock brakes. We have these smart systems now that are going in these cars to keep you from even straying out of your lane or hitting the car in front of you. We are working our asses off to make cars safer all the time. That's why they cost as much as they do. So to sit there and say that people are dying of car accidents, so we shouldn't care about a pandemic, is an idiotic comparison, Dr. Phil, and he should know
But
better.
Dr. Phil is not even a medical doctor, is he?
Mr. Phil. Call him Mr. Phil.
And here's something I'm noticing about all these people. You know who I'm starting to get really pissed off at is Oprah Winfrey, because she has foisted all these idiots upon us all these years.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely. That's the line on Twitter is Oprah, come and get your boy. So
Let's file a class action suit against Oprah.
Well, and I have another one though. So I have co schmucks of the week. The other one is Steve Mnuchin, of course, Treasury Secretary.
Yeah.
One for somehow caving on the stupid signatures on the dumb checks, the stimulus checks. But here's what he said yesterday. He expected that the stimulus checks should last people up to 10 weeks. $1,200. Oh, yeah, that should last people up to 10 weeks. I got mine yesterday. It's already gone.
that's the nail polish budget for that idiot wife of his.
Yeah.
Blondie. I mean, she'll spend
like,
that much on makeup at Sephora in a month.
That's like 2 months worth of, I think, rent in New York City.
Well, 2 months?
No,
$200?
That's like a week.
That's like 2 weeks.
It's like a week. But this is why. I'm sorry, but we should have a means test for people who are going to be doing things like running the Treasury or running these departments. If you make like so many millions of dollars, which Mnuchin obviously has over the course of his career, you have no understanding of what real people are dealing with on a daily basis. The decisions you make are just rooted in your own personal experience, just basically never having to worry about money.
Yep, exactly.
The test should be like ranging.
I think Canada's giving people $2,000 a month or something like that, $4,000 a month or something. I mean, it's Canada, obviously, but still, that's something that people can use.
Yes.
But $1,200, that should last him 10 weeks. What world is he living in? That's not even groceries for 10 weeks.
10 weeks. What a dork.
Crazy talk.
All right. Well, that's my schmuck of the week, Mnuchin, just because he completely doesn't understand what's going on out there.
I would say.
Got anybody you want to nominate?
Trump is still the schmuck of the week.
You have not been on the show. The award is named for him. It is the Donald J. Trump, and the J stands for genius. The Donald J. Trump Schmuck of the Week Award.
So he can't win it.
No,
I would say the Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives.
Ooh, Mr. Chatfield.
Mr. Chatfield, because he went from being like, I think the governor's stay-at-home order is a good thing to do. This is so important. We have to flatten the curve, to going from being in his office waving the American flags out during these marches in Lansing and encouraging people and calling out Whitmer for all this. And I'm just like, that's a complete 180, sir.
Absolutely.
Shocking. I'm shocked.
Well, and they're like, well, this is, the governor's got too much authority. I'm like, didn't you guys just vote a package of bills through to give her that authority?
Yeah.
Don't you control both houses of the legislature? Well, exactly. But, I'm sorry, but gee, hypocrisy in politics. Imagine that.
Yeah,
wow. I know, exactly.
It never happens. Well, okay, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed watching the week that was live on Facebook again. So we had a bunch of people, a lot of good comments that have been coming in. And I appreciate all the feedback, everybody. That's great. And so the weird thing is there's like a delay on Facebook. It's like 20 seconds behind what we're actually doing here. So to read the comments live and in real time is kind of difficult. But we have a comment here from Amy who says, realize you're doing Schmuck of the Week, but I want to give a shout out to the kid in California who asked President Obama to give a national speech to all seniors. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we also have Amy saying, my girls would love to go back to school, but they would rather live. And I agree with that. And so we've got a bunch of great comments that have come on here. So keep the conversation going on Facebook. I always appreciate that. And if you like this, share it with your friends. Let them know that it's out there. It'll be made available as a podcast a little bit later on today. I'll have the audio up if you missed it. And of course, it'll be available on our YouTube page and at DeadlineDetroit.com a little bit later on. So I would like to thank my guests for being with me today. We have, of course, Alex Fahle,
See you, bud. Here's the thing. He's home. He's at his mom's house. I've only seen him once through the glass of the front door when I was picking up some mail. And so I was feeling really bad about that. And then I realized if he was at school, I wouldn't see him either. So, hey, hopefully he's hanging in there.
I'd rather be here. I wouldn't feel comfortable being up at school right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Nancy Derringer, thank you very much. And please tell us about your scarf today.
Oh, this is my Deborah Burke scarf today. This is just a simple cotton number. I have another one over on the bed, but I decided to go with the cooler color because I think
is that $1,200?
No, it's not $1,200. It's
that's right. There's your stimulus money.
Hey,
I thought when I saw the scarf, I was going to have to call you Dr. Nancy.
Yeah, Dr. Nancy. I'm Dr. Deborah Nancy Burks. Anyway, let's give one quick shout out to our Young Journalist of the Year, Violet Ekonomova.
Absolutely.
Who was recognized by this Society for Professional Journalists here in Detroit. And will probably be deprived of the banquet because of social distancing. But anyway.
Well, hey, she'll still get the plaque though. And those are the things that are important.
And the honor and the bragging.
I think I have a few of those sitting in my basement somewhere. Not that one though. I never got that one. That's a big one. So congrats to Violet. She's been doing great work for us for a while, and she's been uncovering some important stories. And that's good stuff. We like to see it. Also, thanks to Michael Lucido, who has been with us. He's actually going to put this together and edit it into some sort of fashion that you can actually watch a little bit later if you want to. So we appreciate Michael's help there.
Yeah, Michael.
Alan, thank you for being here.
You.
Certainly do appreciate it.
Much.
And thanks to everybody for watching today. We certainly do appreciate it. Hang in there. We've got a little bit more of this to deal with before we can start venturing out, seeing each other. But stay home, stay safe, all that good stuff. We're not there yet. I'm going to leave it up to the doctors to tell me when it's a good time to go in. Not a politician. Doctors, not politicians, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That works. All right, Alan, take us out.
And hey, stay home safely.
The Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible in part by Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Techtown Detroit is a business incubator and accelerator, helping tech startups and local businesses launch and grow. Techtown supports businesses with co-working, office, meeting, and event space. They also connect entrepreneurs to resources and learning and networking events in Detroit. Techtown Detroit, Detroit's entrepreneurship hub. Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency, but they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families, and they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.